Hi, and welcome to the May meeting of the Operations Committee. Today we have, let's see here, 11 items on our agenda for consent. Would anyone like to pull any of these items?
Yes, ma'am. I think it'd be good if we pulled number 11.
I agree. Okay, all right. Everybody wants number 11 pulled then.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to pull that and we will discuss that at the end of our discussion list. For discussion, we have 2 items listed on our agenda, but the second item, the interlocal agreement with the town of Apex for the White Oak Creek Greenway Phase 5 has been removed, and we will bring that up at a later date. So we have now 2 items on our agenda. The first item is the landscape improvements to the performance green on Academy Street. Mr. McRaney.
Good afternoon, Council. This staff report is regarding staff's request to landscape the performance green, which is located at the intersection of Dry Avenue and Academy Street. There is funding available for this purpose, and with the likelihood of at least 2 years before the construction of the downtown park, staff feels these temporary improvements are needed to give prominence, given the prominence of this location in downtown Cary. We understand, of course, that the issue with this request has to do with the location of the fire sculpture on this site. This sculpture, which was created and so memorably fired by the artist Nina Hole the first week in November of 2012, has generated much discussion since its creation. And whereas the night of the sculpture it was fired was considered a wonderful event, there has been disagreement on the visual aesthetics of the resulting sculpture. We understand that. Of course, part of the problem has been that since the sculpture was created, it's just been sitting out in the middle of the site without any context. The sculpture would be visually more appealing, we feel, if it had been, if it had more of a natural setting surrounding it. The site overall needs to be landscaped regardless of the individual feelings about the sculpture itself. Given the criticisms of the sculpture, we think it's very important to address the issue of de-accession, as it's called, which comes directly from the Public Art Master Plan. And of course, this is in the staff report. This provides for a public process for the removal of public art. The process provides the reasons that would necessitate that art would be removed. And I might add that this process has been in place since the first public art plan was approved back in 2001. The purpose of this process is to avoid removing public art based solely on opinion, and to date, this process has never been used. The professional movers we met with regarding the fire sculpture, since it was fired, do not think that the piece can be moved. We think to remove the piece permanently would have numerous negative impacts given the large number of volunteers that have worked on the project, the reputation of the artist, and the overall impression that could be reflected on the town. Our recommendation is to allow the staff to proceed with the planning of the park, which includes this square, as requested by council. In the meantime, we'll landscape and improve the appearance of the overall site. And once we have a plan for the park and this site, we'll know whether the sculpture can be utilized as part of the future park, and then a decision can be made on the sculpture. And our recommendation then is to proceed with the landscaping of the site to include around the fire sculpture, and I'll answer any questions council might have.
Waiting for the
Ms. Bush?
Oh, I get to go first. I guess 2 questions. One is the plant material that will be used, the long-term plan for this plant material once the park becomes, a reality. What will happen? They
would be utilized within the park itself. So we're recommending grasses and hollies, large hollies, and so we would relocate those within the park, so they wouldn't be wasted.
So the investment in the landscape
would not be wasted.
Would not be wasted. Tell me if I am reading this back to you the way you said it. Is the word
accession?
De-accession, like secession, but de-accession of this. You're basically saying you're going to put off the decision for that piece of public art until the decision for the entire park is really made.
Yeah, One of the criteria is if there's no longer, if there's a repurpose for the site itself that no longer fits for where the site of the art is there. Because what we're saying is that not liking the art is insufficient to remove it, which is what we feel right now is the problem, you know? So,
But is there a or maybe this is too hard a question based on where we are with the park decision, but is there a likelihood that the way the park will be designed, that piece of art could be included and not moved, and not even moved during the building process?
I can't
all
answer.
Of that?
All I
Just don't know.
we'll go through the planning process and we'll present to council, and that decision will be made.
From a performing art perspective, is that piece of art in the way to?
We've already had a concert, I think, 2 weeks ago, and everything worked out
So it's
great.
fine?
People
Okay.
sat all around it, and it worked out well.
All right.
Thank you. The, putting the art aside for a minute, there is a desire that we want to, as we work through, that's kind of a barren area. So, you know, regardless of what we do, we really need to clean it up. We'd expect a neighborhood to do that, and homeowners association if they had, you know, barren piece of property. So I don't have any problem with that. You know, as liaison to the Public Art Advisory Board, I think there has been some confusion or misunderstanding around, let's say, the final disposition of that art. And I think you're right on it. I don't think it should be just a sole opinion on, you know, do you like it or not. I think there's a risk as we try to encourage artists to come to this town, and we try to be a place that, you know, shows leadership in the area of a wide and diverse range of art. We don't want to develop a reputation of working with an artist and then, you know, going quote back on it. But you know, I can tell you that in talking to people, the thought was that the event was the art, not the actual piece staying afterwards. And I think that's just a genuine, I don't know what you want to call it, misunderstanding or whatever. And I don't. What I want to see is I want to see us have a great downtown park that's of Cary quality that stands out. And if in fact there is, hate to use the word collateral damage, but if that means that piece in itself is not at the right place, I don't mind making that decision then. But you know, I think it's important that we communicate to that community that this is not just based on opinion. You know, this is based on things evolve, things change. We've got a big picture in our minds as a council of the scope and size of that park. And one of the things we've all talked about, and you know, we may still be trying to finalize the size of the park, but one of the things I think we're in strong agreement is that it have a bit of a wow factor, that when you come into town, you have a visual view of an impressive park. I mean, that's how I see it. And so I don't mind that. I think we need to be careful about saying this is about opinion, because I really think it's a matter of we're comparing apples and oranges. We're about to go on a journey that puts us in with a significant park of great stature. And we can look then at, you know, what this does. I mean, but I don't want to prejudge, but I think that's going to be a critical area of how we look at the park.
The other staff report you pulled was, of course, the park project, and you know, in there we talk about that this fall we'll be bringing back the 3 concepts, and so in a short while you'll begin to, you'll begin to have an idea of what that future park's going to look like, and so it's not far off. I mean, it's going to come quickly.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, I think there is agreement among us that we should go ahead and landscape this area so it's more appealing for events and for people passing by. And we will...
It might, I think it's probably worthwhile for us to take a vote on that, but it might also be worthwhile for all of council to weigh in, since this has been a discussion item as well. Curious as to what you think about that.
Okay, well, we have a choice. We can move it forward to discussion and assume that people want to talk about it, or we can put it on consent, and if someone feels passionate about it, he or she can pull it. What do you prefer?
The latter.
The latter, I do too. You agree? Put it on consent, and if someone feels passionate about it, they can pull it.
Yeah, I think so, because
Okay.
we'll leave it at that. We'll just leave
Be
it
ready
at
to talk about it just in case.
Yeah.
But we're moving it under consent.
that. We'll move it
Okay.
under consent for the
Okay.
landscaping. Okay.
All right, that sounds good. Okay, so just for summary, landscape improvements to the Performance Green on Academy Street will be moved to, let's see, the May 9th meeting under consent. All right, our next item is pulled from the consent agenda of this committee, and that is the contract award for the Downtown Park project. Mr. McGraney.
Well, you have a staff report before you. We interviewed a number of consulting teams and are recommending Cole Genest out of Raleigh. Very, very good firm. They worked on Pack Square out in Asheville, and we're very excited. And I think in there the contract value is $200,000. And I want to emphasize, I talked to Ms. Bush today, that I think in the staff report there's a little confusion because we talk about 3 concepts, which of course council has requested, the 6 and 7, 8 acre park. The contract amount is for a complete services, which is not just the concept plans, but design services, construction drawings, along with construction administration. So they'll be there for the duration of the park development, and not just for. I guess it read as if they were just going to be working on 3 concepts, and I just want to correct that. So.
Yeah, that was my confusion. I don't know if you had that confusion, but when I read this staff report, and part of it's my inexperience with how the contracts work, it's not just the concept plan, but it's also the contract services and the design services.
For the final choice of
For
what
the
goes.
final choice. At first I thought, oh, it's $200,000 for, as Jack said, a couple of crayon drawings, but it is not. It's for quite a bit more than that. So thank you very much for the time you spent with me today, Mr. McGraney.
Okay.
Jack, what would you like to say?
Just that I'm still in sticker shock at the amount. I can only give you, my opinion from my memory of that work session. I think we were struggling at that time with a lot of new information, a lot of misinformation, and just a lot of confusion about the expectations for that downtown park. Those are my words and mine only. I want to be very clear about that. So I found the meeting was very helpful, that as a council, we kind of came up with where we had a lot in common, and a lot of it's what I just said earlier, that we have a signature park that is of Cary quality, and that is a real statement for downtown. That's what I got out of that as a group. Where the discussion got a little confusing for me is, does that mean 6 acres? Well, we actually had the extremes from like 3 to 11. But what happened during the course of that meeting, from my perspective, is it seemed that we could achieve that common goal of a signature park in somewhere in that 6. I think we were gravitating a lot to 6, but in the spirit of compromise, we were looking at 7 or 8, and we wanted to see some concepts. When I left that meeting, to me, that was just some general concepts, not the whole enchilada of the whole plan here, where the scope of what you just brought up, Ms. Bush. And I guess the only question I have is the fee at the price it is, because we're asking for so many variables. To me, we should be asking these consultants, we want to park in about this range, and we want you to do, that conceptual model. But I don't want a lot of money spent for a 6, a 7, and an 8.
There-
Does that make sense?
Yes, it sure does.
So that's my take. So when I read this, I was a little bit, I felt like, I'm not going to say it.
May I say it?
Go ahead.
My concern is that the council has not refined its vision for this block enough to be able to move on to this step. May I have the opinion of staff on that? Like, would the staff see benefit if the council were to go back and revisit this and try to refine our vision a little bit better and try to give you maybe some more pointed direction about what we anticipate on this block?
I think any guidance would assist. I mean, internally, discussions with staff, along with the consultants, there is not much difference between 6, 7, and 8 acres. Just in our, so what we had talked about is we were going to try to give how can I put this? We were going to try to give you as unique concepts as possible to try to push and help the decision making. To me, a positive outcome of that work session when we would get back together with council would be obviously a single preferred alternative where you'd say, I like this, I like that, and then out of that, but any additional guidance that we could, that you could provide staff, obviously, I think would be helpful.
Is this maybe I should ask it differently, is this a normal price? Like, let's say,
Very much so.
surprisingly enough, all of us were bought into one concept plan. Would it still be around this amount?
Yes.
Yes, this price is actually pretty good in our opinion.
It's very good.
Excellent price. Now, it can move all over the place to the extent council's not clear on what they want on that track. So if they come in with a concept plan and council says, I want this or I want this, they're going to go back and they're going to put it in. It's going to cost more to do that.
Could we
We don't know where the
approve-
library is going to be. We've heard talk about it being on this site. We've heard about it being somewhere else. So there are a number of moving parts.
Can we approve this $209,890 to be awarded to Cole, Genist, and Stone, but in anticipation of them beginning their work, have the council have a work session or a series of work sessions where we can try to refine better what we're thinking about for that block? So when they go
Absolutely.
to do the park,
So we don't end.
So we don't
we're
waste our
not
time.
wasting our money and time, because I don't feel like we're at that point yet where we all are on the same page, and I don't want us to start spending money designing things and then having it be expensive haggling. I'd like us to haggle now before we start spending the money.
Yes.
So would you recommend then we ask staff to add a work session and we approve this, or we postpone this?
I would actually award this and have staff schedule one or more work sessions in rapid fire if we can, so we can work through this issue.
Agreed. That's
Okay.
what I would like to see too.
Okay, good. All right, so are we all together on that? Do we need to bring this to discussion since we're adding that work session component in, or can we approve this under consent?
I'll give you an opinion. My opinion is that
Discussion.
I think we better have discussion.
let's move this for
I think
discussion
this
then.
one needs a lot of sunshine
Okay.
on it. And
Yep.
it needs a lot
Okay.
of people.
Agreed.
Let's move this for discussion then at the May 9th council meeting, and if it's possible to have some dates lined up before then, so we could try to give the council an idea of when we would be able to meet to start discussing this, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
Since you reported that meeting, I think it's fair to report of the intent to go with the staff recommended bid, but so that we don't have those moving parts that the town manager talked about where it could actually go up.
Right.
What we're trying to do is help facilitate this so that we can stay within budget.
Good.
That make sense?
Yeah,
And you get to do that.
I will do that. Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, that concludes our meeting of the Operations Committee. Thank you very much.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.